After the Gloria, the priest says the collect of the Mass.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Oremus. Deus qui nos hodie
The collect, also called the oratio, comes from the propers for the Mass of the day. It begins with an oremus, which is said while making a low head bow, and finishes with a conclusion. The conclusion will differ according to the text of the prayer. As soon as the priest arrives at the missal, he separates and rejoins his hands as he makes a low head bow and says,
Oremus.
He then extends his hands for the prayer.
Deus qui nos hodie die exaltatio.
He says the entire collect with hands extended in a loud voice. At the end of the prayer, he joins his hands and says the conclusion.
Periundum Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium Tuum, qui tecum vivit et regnat in unitate Spiritus Sancti Deus, per omnia saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
There are three possible conclusions to the collect prayer. The most common conclusion is Per Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium Tuum, qui tecum vivit et regnat in unitate Spiritus Sancti Deus, per omnia saecula saeculorum. If this conclusion is to be said, the priest joins his hands as he begins the conclusion and makes a low head bow when he mentions the holy name. The second conclusion is Qui vivis et regnas cum Deo Patre in unitate Spiritus Sancti Deus per omnia saecula saeculorum. The third conclusion is Qui tecum vivit et regnat in unitate Spiritus Sancti Deus per omnia saecula saeculorum. Since these last two conclusions do not contain the holy name, the priest does not bow his head while saying these conclusions. These three conclusions must be memorized, since the Missal will not contain the entire text of the conclusion, but simply indicate which conclusion to use by printing only the first 2 or 3 words of the conclusion after the text of the prayer.
Eius redemptionis premii in caelo meriamur. Periundum Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium Tuum, qui tecum vivit et regnat in unitate.
At the end of the conclusion, the server responds,
Amen.
The priest then immediately begins the epistle. The epistle is said in the loud tone, with hands placed on the missal. If the holy name is mentioned in the epistle, the priest makes a low head bow.
Quod est in Christo Iesum, qui cum in forma Dei esset non rapinam, habitatus est esse se equalum Deo.
If he must make a genuflection while reading, he places his hands on the altar and genuflects at the place marked in the text.
Propter corde Deus exaltavit idum, et donavit iri nomen, corde super omne nomen, ut in nomine Iesu, omne genuflectatur.
At the end of the epistle, he signals the server to respond by laying his left hand on the altar or by nodding his head.
Deo gratias.
After the epistle, there are a number of prayers in succession which will vary depending on the season. For most of the year, there will be a gradual followed by an Alleluia verse. During the season of Septuagesima and Lent, and for vigils, the Alleluia is replaced with a tract. During Paschal time, the gradual is replaced with an extra Alleluia verse. And on 6 special feast days during the year, there will be, in addition to these prayers, a sequence. The prayers which follow the epistle will always be clearly marked in the Missal. They are read in the loud tone, with hands placed on the book.
Alleluia, alleluia. Dulce dignum, dulce clavus, dulce afferens pondere, quesora fuisti digna.
When he finishes the last prayer, he joins his hands and goes to the center to begin the prayers before the Gospel.